watching Morning at NTV.
Good morning to you. You're still watching Morning at NTV here, turning on your world, especially when it comes to the national budgeting process that we're going to be hearing from in some hours to come. As by the end of this week, we will have known where we have stood in the current financial year and what is the expected and the plan for the financial year 2023-2024. However, the big question mark still stands with a population of about 70% young people here in Uganda. What's the participation, representation, engagement and reflection of the young people in the budgetary process? And therefore, in our Tech Note this morning, we're going to be looking at youth participation in the national budget. I am Priscilla Regina Naloga. You're most welcome to this debate. Hashtag Morning at NTV for your engagements as we journey on. Now, Africa has a vibrant youth population, no doubt. However, the potential among this demographic has not yet been realized across the countries. Now, when you look at countries like Uganda, policies do not respond to the concerns of younger citizens, even though they make up nearly 60% of the total electorate. Only 30% of Uganda's parliament is actually under the age of 35 years of age, despite 78% of this population fitting the age demographics. Where are we going wrong? There's also the problem that is realized globally. While you do have a lot of engagement and youth recognition across the, especially on the global side, in terms of deciding how resources are allocated, but that there's also value addition and viewpoints that young people can bring to establish good governance in different countries. What's the state of that for us here in Uganda? Now, when it also comes to youth, can involving themselves in participatory budgeting, public expenditure tracking, monitoring public service delivery, lobbying, and embarking on advocacy campaigns go a long way in changing the fate of our country, for which we ought to be enjoying as the young people of tomorrow? Well, that's a question mark. But I am joined by Jacob Eyeru, who's the Chairperson, National Youth Council, and Mr. Emmanuel Kisembo, who's a youth leader in Bunyoro Kitara. Not new to our platform here, but they continuously echo the voices of young people. So I'll ask for their greetings. Good morning to you. Should I say Mugore? You're still fresh off the block. So good morning, Mugore.
Good morning, my dear sister, and good morning to our viewers.
Okay. Mr. Kisembo, good morning to you and good to have you.
Good morning, Ugandans.
Yeah, I will say this span of young leaders have bands on their fingers, on their left hands, and so they're doing good youth participation in that area of marital bliss. Hopefully I should join the squad very soon. Anyway, speaking of the financial year budget 2023-2024 coming up anytime soon, I would like to have analysis of the current financial year as it's elapsing. We want to see how have the youth been represented and how has the budget allocations for the present financial year actually aided youth and development in this country. Let me start with Mr. Kisembo. While you do have your regional representation, you've done good work within the Bunyoro Kitara region. Could you give us an analysis of your region versus other regions in youth participation but also budget allocation?
Yeah, well, when you look at this budget that is now ending financial year, which is elapsing, you'll find that few things have been attained, and you find that the budget or the government itself has good things on paper. It looks very, very good, but in implementation and the feasibility study, you find that it is zero. So many things that are happening. Most of them, they're isolated cases, like corruption, which have really affected the budget and even the youth in Bunyoro and even Uganda at large. But also, there are certain effects that are recurring on, like we are in a COVID recess, And when we are trying to recover from COVID, again you hear Russia-Ukraine war coming in, you find the fuels is rising. So all those are problems coming up. Climate change, overpopulation, unemployment, those are all challenges that are within Bunyoro and even Uganda at large. So the government really needs to fight, much as it is struggling to maintain the youth. But I was trying to look at the projection that it was about in 2020. I was looking at what exactly are we looking at. I was looking at about 14 to 16% of the youth that we are talking about. Because when you look at the 78%, most of these are children. You will find that at least until the age of 24, most of these are dependents. Then from the age of 25 to 35, now we can talk about them. That is the percentage. It is about 14 to 16%. Then when you look at 35 beyond, I mean 35 to about 65, you find that that is now the time you're supposed to work and remit taxes to government. Then from 65 and above, again, they depend on this other age, from about 25 to about 64. So they become also dependents. So a larger percentage of the youth that is supposed to remit taxes to government is only about 14 to 16%. And that is according to the 2020 projections, in line with the population census. That is from about 2014. So you'll find that government is trying, it's level-based, but so many people, they are really not very, very okay within their household. The budget that we are running is cash budget. Even right now, if I ask you, we don't have contingency funds in the districts. If anything happens, a disaster, they have to look for where to get money. Even myself here, I'm running a cash budget. I don't know what is tomorrow. When it is today, I see what I should buy for my children. Then tomorrow, it minds about itself. So that's what I can tell Ugandans, that the budget we are running is a cash budget.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Jacob, with the National Youth Council, and you have been having the opportunity to engage with young leaders. What has been the opinion of young leaders in terms of their participation being reflected in national planning?
Thank you. So I think that generally young people everywhere are more interested in the outcomes of the process than in participating in the process. So it's been a bit of a journey to try and have young people understand why their participation is important. We've done a lot of work with civil society partners that work around those areas, and I've seen NTV work with them as well on just getting people to understand the value of participation, because the budget process starts from the village, and those budget conferences that come all the way to the district are happening at administrative levels where young people have representational leadership. The National Youth Council structures exist, but there had not been enough participation. So what we changed this financial year was that we began to encourage that, and we saw, from our measurements, we saw about a 70% increase in participation of young people at district budget conferences. And we also asked that the representations of young people, the youth councillors at the district level, begin to have more impact in terms of what are the outcomes that we desire and how do we push through those outcomes to the final budget paper that comes out. It's just the same with us at the national level. At the national level, our role is to ensure that right before it comes out, we have presented what would be the best way forward for young people of the country. And we do that with Parliament. The challenge is we can't really control the entire process. And I think that's where young people might get radicalized, because what you ask for, what you agree to, is not entirely what comes out. What comes out is a balance of very many forces, and that's when the statistics begin to matter. How many young people are in Parliament? How many of those young people in Parliament are focused enough to see that when it's budget process time, all young people's needs are met? How do you make sure those young people's needs are met? It's by checking the list of what's coming through to Parliament, organizing yourself, because that's a time of appropriation. So you ensure that that goes through. But where you have a Parliament where about only 30% are below 35, you need allies, okay? And those alliances have to be intentional. And that's something that the Parliamentary Forum on Youth Affairs would be doing very well. The current leadership and the former leadership has been doing it very well. But when it comes to budgeting time, organizing has not been sufficient to ensure that we have a very strong show. And I think that's the lesson we're taking into the next financial year, so that we learn from that. Finally, on the question of whether we are getting, as young people, after having input, whether we are getting what we think is relevant. From my experience, we need to keep engaging, because when you look at it, some of the decisions that are taken are not even taken in Parliament. Some of the decisions that are taken are only confirmed by Parliament. They are taken in technical rooms, and then in the first budget call, which comes around December, everyone is able to say, okay, this is the direction we are following. But who determines the direction? It's basically Ministry of Finance. So if you're able to convince the Ministry of Finance that something is relevant, then Ministry of Finance can push for it. The challenge we have there is that Ministry of Finance sometimes does not understand the necessity of certain issues, because they look at budget in terms of financing what reproduces money and creates a bigger economic impact. But there are budgets that are relevant even though they are not reproducing money necessarily. For example, when you're mobilizing youth generally to attend education, okay? In the short run, it looks like it's a wasted expenditure, since there are schools and youth should be interested naturally. But in the long run, you prevent a situation where you have the workforce is talking about, because you're skilling young people and you're making them more creative. But that needs to come with empowering young people and young leaders. That's why for us, our insistence is, how do we get more money into young people programs, but also into the hands of young leaders?
Okay, so then it begs the question, Dr. Emmanuel, in terms of sectorial participation and budget allocation to different sectors, which are those sectors from your standpoint of view that the government ought to be focusing on to then realize the future of youth being participatory and active in budget allocation, or even being part of the tax base that we want to target for a bigger budget and a better Uganda economically?
Yeah, what I wanted to inform you and the Ugandans that we need really to see, because we are looking at the youth. The youth is from 0 years to about 35 years of age. So I was telling you how many people are we looking at as the young people. I tried to make my projection of 220. About from 0 to 4 years, I got 7 million, that is about 17%. Then 5 to 9 years, 6 million, that is 14.7. Then 10 to 14 years, that is 5.5 million children. That is about 13.3. Then 15 to 19, 4.9 children, that is 11%. Then 20 to 24, that is about 4 million of 9.7. Then 25 to 29, where now we are starting, because we assume below 24 they are in schools, and depending on what is now coming up, they want to change the curriculum about 6 years in HSC. I don't know, it may even push to about 30 years of age. So per now we are looking from 25 to 34. That is about 25 to 29. That is about 3.2 million, making a percentage of 7.8. Then 30 to 34 years, making 2.5. That is 6%. Then from 30 to 35, it is making about 1.9. So we are looking at about 14 to 15%. Now that is what we are looking at. That these people, government should look at them and empower them such that they can remit taxes to government. But when you look at the budget that we have in Uganda, that we run, it is a cash budget. You have seen in Bududa these landslides, you have seen in Kasese floods, even at the district, the locus. You find they look left, right, center. They cannot get these funds. Why? Because government doesn't have this money. Cash. So when I again give you an example like about schools, by the Local Government Act, you will find that every parish at least should have a primary school, and every Gomborora or sub-county should have at least a secondary school. Then a constituency should have at least a technical school. So when you look at over 10,000 parishes, those are 10,000 primary schools. You look at about how many sub-counties? Over 2,000 should be secondary schools. Then is constituencies about 312. You find that all those are technical schools. And you find this policy, it is now being affected by politics. You find there is a parish or a Gomborora that cannot really raise these children to maintain a given a given school or a given health center. Okay. So you find most of Doctor, our money.
While that's the reality, how do we then reverse what we have as the cash economy?
Yeah, the issue is now to reduce on the administrative costs. Like when you see most of our money is going into politics. You find that every person, actually you will even, I think every family would be now having an MP, or every household. As when you see what is running right now, you will find that a small district, like now Chikuba and Hoima, there is no need to cut Chikube from Hoima because Kikube is very near to where? To Hoima. You find a lot of money is going to these districts that are new like Chikube. These mafias in government, they want to swindle this money from where there are no cameras. Like here in Kampala, find media houses are very many. So they push this money very far away, like Katakwe. They push it to Chikube, then they take it from there.
Okay, then this begs the question, Jacob, in terms of governance, the structures that we have, let's take the most relatable structure, local government. It has the 5-tier system, LC1, T5. This gives them the opportunity to engage and gives them powers to generate income, to solicit ideas on how to be able to deal with the local issues, planning, and so on and so forth. Basically, it gives them the opportunity to engage with realization of resources, allocation of resources, and budgeting for those resources. Now, how do we then have the youth appreciate the benefits of engaging in such forms of governance to be able to translate into the national picture, where we hope to see that, you know, the MPs below 35 years of age increasing in parliament later on?
Well, one, I think it's the responsibility of government, especially the one in charge of the budgeting process, that's the Ministry of Finance, to ensure that they make the population understand the necessity of their participation. People who are, he likes calling it a cash economy, people who are surviving every day, they are getting food hand to mouth, are not very interested in knowing who is supposed to handle what amount of money in the country. You need to make them see the value of their voice. so that they can be able to then come out and participate. So I think number one is a responsibility of government. Number two is to encourage people that are already doing it, civil society organizations. I know Siatini, Youth for Tax Justice, I've seen a few others, ACORD, are working towards ensuring that young people know about the budget process and their voices in that budget process is heard. Those people need to be encouraged because they are the ones helping us. Where government stands short maybe on money, those people's programs and financing has come in handy. But for me, the most important thing in that aspect of how do we get more young voices in, but also how do we get more young people actively interested in that, it's really through ensuring a bit better citizen activeness. If you have young people beginning to question the issues of development at their local level, then you will get more interest from many others. Because the challenge that we have currently is that our politics has been dominated by people that are not young for a long time, and as the young population begins to grow,
is that they fought for the position that Uganda is in today.
I'm not talking about people who fought. I'm talking about an age group generally.
It's the age group still.
Yeah, but also opposition has a lot of old people. Yeah. So what I'm basically saying is there are young people who are emerging in politics, whether they are in the NRM or in NUP or FDC, doesn't matter to me so much. What matters is how much is their emergence having effect on the politics. That's very important, because you can be so many and all of you are just being pushed around. None of you is determining direction. So for me, the important part that we need to play as young people in politics is to ensure that we are influencing where it matters. If we are not influencing where it matters, then many young people will not see the relevance of them coming on board to have a word or two.
Okay,
maybe an information there. I just wanted to help my brother here. The only way young people can really participate into budgeting process and what, it is these people who have overstayed in power to retire willingly and allow these young people enter into their shoes. That mentoring, by now you will find that 65%, I mean about the cabinet itself, it is about 65 years of age and above. If you look at the average, you look at their average. So if these people could willingly retire, then young people like us, I have aspired as a vice chairperson Western, if the NRM is willing to mentor the young people, that's how the young people can really help actually push their problems forward. You will not tell me much as Parliament will pass it, Cabinet will not pass it.
Okay.
Yeah. Most of these people have to retire and help the young population take over from them willingly.
Okay, of course there's the official options of retirement that go through the electoral process, but nevertheless, while we are having this discussion, we expected to hear the national budget for financial year 2023-2024. Of course, we have been hearing what's been happening in Parliament and various committees, and the axing of the budgets, the cuts left, right and center, and yet we have seen the very same budget being revisited twice, from 50 plus trillion now to 52 plus trillion. So it begs the question, where is the reflection of youth in the next financial year? Jacob.
First of all, I need to be very clear. We as the National Youth Council are very unhappy with the next financial year budget. We are extremely unhappy, and in the near future you will see that we will be very serious about it. Number one, the leading institution of young people in the country is the National Youth Council. Our budget has been cut as it stands. Our budget has been cut against the advice of the President by 80%. And so we had just begun a movement that creates stronger institutions among young people, so that young people can show leadership. They need some money to show leadership. And what we had just started was that district youth councils would have their own bank accounts, and that their money would be channeled to those bank accounts, because they've been complaining about corruption of youth money that goes to them, that is in their responsibility. We had just started that process, and we had just committed for the first time money from the national level to district level from our own budget that we control as a national executive, and that is no longer possible with the 80% cut that is coming into this financial year budget. Okay. So for me, that is a very bad, very bad signal.
Okay, so it translates into breaking then mending.
For me, that's the problem, okay. Number one. Number two, I'll just quickly put across three. Number two is that we are unhappy with the capitalization nature of the budget. You have programs that directly impact young people. One of them is skilling. We have argued that we need skilling centers per district where vocational education is free, but government pays for those young people to be skilled. Okay,
so basically decentralized skilling, because I know that it's being put in particular regions.
Yes, currently it's under the presidential program, but it's not enough.
Let's hear from Dr. Emmanuel, your expectations and translation of youth participation in the next financial year?
Yeah, to me, I don't see any much, because government is really struggling. Okay. If you don't know, I know how it is struggling. If my colleague doesn't know, I know. Right now, we have passed the homosexuality bill. It is protecting the youth. Government has been very clear to help and protect the youth. But we are being threatened by the funders, because most of our budget is funded by these foreigners.
Okay.
Yeah. So you will find that government really doesn't have much. Much as you are saying, skilling, schools, they should be in every parish, they should be in every sub-county. Look at health centers, by law, every district should have at least a general hospital. So you find the government is really being pushed to the wall.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, at the end of the day, I believe that youth participation in national planning is actually for the good of governance for this country, to cater to all that are in it. So youth are equally big citizenship contributors to what is happening on the national level. We shall wait to hear what comes out of the national budget financial year 2023-2024. We've got to bring this debate right here to an end. And of course, Morning at NTV is also closing up with a birthday greeting to our very own Ann Nixon, Madam Producer for the beat here on NTV. She does a commendable job. So happy birthday to you, Miss Ann Nixon, and we wish you nothing but the best. I hope to see you under the hosepipe later on for the birthday shower. From Chris Igeni and myself, Priscilla Regina Naloga, have yourselves a good day. Bye-bye.